I'm David Scandura,
I'm Justus Burkett.
and today we're here to find out, is Bloodsport the greatest movie ever made?
Who the hell are these two scumbags?
Just stay out of it, pal. It's not your business, okay?
I ain't your pal, dickface.
Welcome to the greatest movie ever made.
It's Watto again. He's back. For half a second, I thought you were doing JCVD, and then it got gravelier, and I was like, nope, that's Watto again. We are back to Watto.
I'm betting everything on Chong Li. He always wins.
Honestly, I would bet everything on Chong Li. I want Chong Li to win the Kumite more than I want Frank Dukes to win the Kumite. Like, just in this movie, pretty much the whole time, I was like, I'm honestly voting. I'm pro Chong Li. I am rooting for Chong Li. He just, I don't know. There's just something about him that resonated with me more than the strange Belgian alien drifting through this film that is Jean-Claude Van Damme.
The alien that is attempting to mimic human speech to understand our behavior.
He is truly an inscrutable little weirdo in this movie. Like, just nothing about him reads as naturalistic or normal in any way. And everybody kind of treats him that way too. Everybody's like, look at this fucking freak. Like, Jackson, when he meets him, is kind of like, what's your fucking problem, kid? Like, what's your deal? What's with all the meditating and the splits and shit? Like, I don't understand what's going on with you. And I was like, honestly, Jackson, I don't get it either. I saw his backstory in a 10-minute flashback that was triggered by him looking sexually at a katana, and I still don't really get what his deal is.
You supply the entry fee, I supply the muscles from Brussels. We split the winnings 50-50, I think.
You know, my ideal version of this movie is 45 minutes long, and it's just the Kumite scenes.
Yeah.
And then every time we cut back to the crowd and someone's betting, we just digitally insert Watto floating there with all of the egregious and awful Asian stereotypes who are just betting like crazy in this movie.
Yeah. Watto would fit right in this movie because this movie is racist as hell. This is probably the most racist movie we have covered on the podcast so far. This movie is very problematic.
And somehow George Lucas's floating Jewish stereotype dragon is less racist than most of the characters in this film.
Yeah, less racist than the black Kumite participant who they have fighting like he is an actual ape, which is horrific. I saw that and my jaw dropped. I was like, even in 1988, I didn't know you could make a movie that racist. Like, I didn't know that this was even an option. It's like they unlocked a new level of racism for that visual. I was just like, holy shit, guys. We can't be doing this.
Or the Middle Eastern Kumite fighters who mostly don't exactly look like they're Middle Eastern, but you know that the movie is treating them as Middle Eastern because it just gave them turbans.
Yes, and like they found one Middle Eastern sounding name, and only one of them has a name. So they were like, well, let's flip open, Middle Eastern names, most popular Middle Eastern men's names. Sadiq and Hussein? Okay, great. This guy's name is Sadiq Hussein, right? It's just like, okay, it is simultaneously a movie packed full of very creative racism, but also like the moments of creative racism that stick out where you're like, wow, that's highly offensive and I object to it. However, very interesting choice in how to be racist, like the guy who fights like a monkey.
Yeah.
For every one moment that sticks out like that, there are 10,000 visuals that are just like your average run-of-the-mill normal Hollywood racism, like Sadiq Hussein, right? It's like the thing that we see with that guy is he is costumed to be Middle Eastern, and he goes to slap a woman at one point. And that's all we know of this character.
And he's got a gold tooth.
Yeah, he's got a gold tooth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to mention just the this movie is dripping. It is sopping with Orientalism. Like, it's just, like, soaked through to the core with Orientalism. The whole, like, Western idea of, like, oh, Eastern culture is so mysterious. And so, you know, I was thinking about this movie in comparison with Ip Man, a movie that is actually from Asia, and the difference in how Asia is depicted in those two movies. And I was like, yeah, Americans really don't get it. I was going to say didn't get it in the 80s, but I feel like a lot of Americans probably
still don't.
Myself included. You know, I don't claim to be an expert on Asian culture. However, I can tell when it is being depicted inaccurately, such as in this film. Anyway.
Well, there are many inaccuracies with this story, starting with Frank Dukes just made all this shit up.
Right, starting with the fact that this is all inspired by the true life events of a con man and a grifter who lied about everything that he said happened to him. It's just so funny when that title thing appears at during the end credits, being like, based on the actual life events of Frank Dukes, and then it's like his whole fighting record, and it's like 392 consecutive wins, 0 losses, and I'm like, bull fucking shit. That guy's still alive. And I wonder if he does conventions and stuff.
He had a website, and I tried to access it, but I think it might be down. But
yeah, the U.S. government took it down. They're trying to deplatform him to keep him from getting the truth out there.
Officialfrankdukes.com. I'll have to check it out later and see if I can actually access it.
Do you think he's been on Joe Rogan?
I'm sure.
I hope so.
I feel like he's been riding this. His claim to being, one, a military operative who worked for the CIA,
yes, correct,
and two, the champion of an illegal Asian fighting tournament that never happened.
No, like which does not exist.
He's really been coasting on that for his whole life.
And you know what? If he hadn't been, we wouldn't have this movie, which, while this movie is insanely racist and very sexist, it's also very fun to watch. So I'm like, I guess Frank Dukes, like, yeah, he's like a grifter who is like conning people out of their money by saying all this shit that isn't true. But also he made Bloodsport happen, so probably we'll call it a watch.
He also did the fight choreo for this.
Yes.
Which makes sense because we'll talk about the fighting, obviously. There are times where I'm like, I don't think the human body is physically capable of that.
Correct.
And also, I don't think that is proper martial arts technique.
I think there are maybe like 2 guys in this movie who do actual martial arts moves. And yeah, everybody else is just doing some made up bullshit. Jackson especially. I was like, this is like sub WWE shit. He's literally just fighting, and I guess it fits with the character, but he's literally just fighting like he's in a bar fight.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not studied at all.
Exactly.
You mean to tell me that this man, who is basically just swinging haymakers and like picking people up and throwing them, and like those are his moves, this guy qualified for the fucking elite fighting tournament that's supposed to be the best fighters from the entire world? This is who I guess the eastern seaboard of the U.S. had to send to represent them, because Frank Dukes is San Francisco, so he's got the West Coast covered.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, what is... I would love to know, I would love to study the martial art that Jackson is using in this film. If I've never taken a martial arts class, if someone was teaching biker brawling, I would just be there immediately.
Getting drunk and throwing punches wildly.
Yeah. Welcome to Biker Brawling 101. Today we're gonna cover the standard biker brawling moves that you're gonna need to know in order to advance to the next level. That's gonna be the kick in the nuts, the left hook, the right hook, and of course, the pick up and throw the guy.
For your warm-up today, you're gonna start off by drinking 7 Coors Lights and beating this slab of meat that I got hanging from a hook here.
If you don't eat these chicken wings in these 40 chicken wings in under 90 seconds, you're out of the class. It's the qualifying event for the yellow belt. Biker brawling dojo.
How are you?
I am So good because I'm off of work for 4 weeks. I feel fucking fantastic.
I kind of gathered that when you started singing.
Yes. Yeah, there's not really any other explanation needed. I'm off my day job for 4 weeks and I'm fucking thrilled about it. So I'm good. How are you doing, David?
I'm good.
Good.
I need to take some time off.
Yeah, do it.
Because I got about 2 or 3 weeks of PTO stacked up. I'm not gonna use all of that, but I should use some of that.
Yeah.
Because you and I are currently involved in a play together.
Yes. I like using my PTO for when I'm in a play a lot of the time because it's like, yeah, you could use your PTO to like go on a vacation, go do something fun. But sometimes I like just using like a week of it while I'm in a show to just be like, I don't have to go to work and the only thing I have to do is go to rehearsal tonight and the rest of my day is just free and I can just like fucking chill out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I need to do that.
Yeah, do it.
Do you have anything to recommend this week?
No, because I haven't really watched anything because I have been directing a play. I'll watch more movies for the next 4 weeks though because I'm off of work. So no, nothing this week. How about you?
Okay. I have to recommend the new album from one of my favorite musicians of all time, Julie Christmas.
Yes.
Her new album, Ridiculous and Full of Blood, her first studio album her first solo album in 14 years, and her first album of recorded music in 8 years since the release of the collaborative album Mariner with her and Cult of Luna in 2016.
Banger album.
Her new album also is fucking awesome, and it's heavy as shit. It sounds a lot like her old Made Out of Baby stuff.
Yeah.
And her vocals are so good.
As always.
Her vocals are incredible on that album. Like, for someone who I haven't heard sing in 8 years, she sounds better than ever.
Nice.
So yeah, check that record out. It whips ass. It's sludge metal, alternative metal kind of stuff. It's a little bit less experimental than her solo record, The Bad Wife, which had some more, some different styles on there and such. This, I think she was working with some of the guys from Cult of Luna again. So it's definitely heavier than her solo record. And reminds me a lot of that Made Out of Baby stuff, which is where she kind of first came up with Made Out of Babies and Battle Mice in the 2000s.
Yeah, I'm going to have to give that a listen. I've been meaning to, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I didn't realize that was more in the metal direction than The Bad Wife. I like The Bad Wife, but hearing that this album is heavier than that does make me more excited to listen to it, just because I'm in a heavy phase right now with the music that I've been enjoying.
Yeah.
But The Bad Wife's also great.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway. So Bloodsport.
Yeah, my other immediate recommendation is the film Bloodsport.
Yeah, do you have any like background on this movie that you wanted to talk about? Because this was my first time seeing this movie.
So this is a canon film.
Yes.
This is our second canon film.
It is. Our first canon film was Episode 1, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll save like our canon movie rant till, I don't know, maybe we'll do a month of canon movies at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Throw in, a Death Wish 3.
Ninja
or
3, The Domination.
Ninja 3, yeah. Or Invasion USA. Or Cobra with Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
There's a lot of directions we could go, but canon films were... I'm sorry.
I feel like we should leave all the burps in on this episode just because it feels appropriate to the movie.
Canon films were kind of the black sheep of Hollywood in the 80s, formed by two Israeli filmmakers, Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus. And they made a lot of low-budget, cheap, trashy exploitation films and action movies and such.
Yeah.
And are responsible for the careers of Jean-Claude Van Damme, Chuck Norris, and a couple others, Dolph Lundgren. And they have a little special place in my heart. And this is Jean-Claude Van Damme's breakout film with them.
Yes.
And it is inspired by the life of Frank Dukes, who was a martial artist who made up everything about the Kumite and the illegal fighting tournament and his career.
And actually did serve in the U.S. military, but apparently when someone like FOIA requested his actual records, to like fact check his story, it was like, no, yeah, he like left after he got a psychiatric evaluation that like showed that he was a compulsive liar, basically.
Yeah. I also found out this. So this is directed by a guy named Newt Arnold, who
Yes.
hasn't done much, but I found out he was like assistant director on The Godfather Part 2 and Blade Runner
What the fuck?
and James Cameron's The Abyss.
What the hell?
And this is one of 3 directing credits and is the most popular film that he's made. I haven't heard of the other ones.
Man, Hollywood is full of dudes like that, and every time you run across one, you're just like, what the hell is going on? What is this guy's deal, right? He directed Bloodsport and then worked on some of the best movies Hollywood ever churned out. Like, what is happening?
Yeah. I scooped up a DVD pack of a bunch of Canon movies a while ago, and this was in there, and I watched it, and here we are talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure how we decided to talk about it. I think I just looked at our list and I was like, oh fuck it, we'll throw Bloodsport in here.
I think so. I'm glad you did, though, because this, like I said, was the first time I'd ever seen this movie. I've seen a few Canon films, but this was my first time with this one. And yeah, boy oh boy, is this something.
Also, I'm pretty sure, I didn't look this up, but I think I've looked this up in the past. I'm like 90% sure that this movie inspired Mortal Kombat. It's like this in Big Trouble in Little China.
It did. So I actually heard a fact about this because I was like researching stuff about the movie after I watched it. It was an inspiration for Mortal Kombat, and they actually had to pay. I don't know if it was they had to pay Canon or they had to pay JCVD or who, but money had to change hands for them to do to have the Johnny Cage character's finishing move be doing the splits and punching you in the nuts, like JCV does in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, yeah. So there is a direct line from this movie to Mortal Kombat, which is very funny because as I was watching this movie, I was like, this does sort of also remind me of the Mortal Kombat movie, which of course came out later, but it's like, it's just a fun, like, Ouroboros eating its own tail.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also really Street Fighter, this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Street Fighter has the thing where it's like, it's less fantastical than Mortal Kombat. And Street Fighter had already come out by the time this movie came out, right? So there might be some Street Fighter influence on the movie. But like Street Fighter is the thing where it's like, it's less fantastical, and there's like also characters that sort of represent a cartoonish racial stereotype of the part of the world that they're from, which is very much what this movie does. This is sort of a great video game movie, even though it's not actually based on a video game. It's just based on Frank Dukes' video game that he invented as his life that he tells people actually happened to him.
Yeah, his tall tale of the life. As fantastic stories. Yeah, and I kind of like this movie better than the Mortal Kombat movie.
I would agree with that. I would say Mortal Kombat movie I saw in my formative years, so it has a special place for me, but I would say this is a better movie than the Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah.
I think. Even though the Mortal Kombat movie is directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, one of my favorite guys who has directed a film of all time.
I like that you didn't say favorite directors.
Yes.
Because
it's just...
I think I get the difference, though.
Yes. It's less that I am a fan of him as a director and more that I am a fan of him as a guy. Because, like, there are so many pictures of him with oh gosh, what's his wife's name?
Mila Jovovich.
I wanted to say Kate Beckinsale, and I knew that wasn't right, but you can understand why I would mix them up.
Yeah, same genre of woman, I think.
Yes. And appears frequently in the same genre of movies, which is bullshit horror action. But no offense to Mila Jovovich or Kate Beckinsale, get your money, queens. But yeah, there's so many pictures of him with Mila Jovovich, and she looks like an angel, and he is wearing like cargo shorts and a fucking frayed ass like baseball cap, but the baseball cap that's like flat on top, you know what I'm talking about, like the military style cap.
Yeah.
And he just looks like he smells like old cigarettes. And I'm like, I love that this like grungy ass British man who looks like dollar store Iggy Pop at this point in his life has like this statuesque goddess of a wife and just keeps making her star in movies, and they've made $1 billion. I love that for them.
Yeah, I can't hate the guy.
Yeah. It's great.
He's kind of living my dream.
Yeah.
I got a hot wife, and I'm just gonna make movies and put her in
And
them.
I'm just gonna have her star in all of my movies, and all of my movies are gonna be insanely profitable because the stupidest people on earth love this franchise. And he also directed Event Horizon,
It always comes back to Event
a
Horizon.
movie I love.
We should stop talking about the guy who didn't direct this movie
Yes.
and probably talk about the actual movie.
That's
that we,
correct. So this movie opens with a montage of dudes getting ready for Kumite, basically. There's dudes punching gags. There's the racist thing where the guy who fights like a monkey is up in a tree chopping coconuts.
Yeah, that was nuts. I was
It's-
losing my shit.
Yeah, it is as racist as a cartoon from the 1920s. I was like, what do you think you're doing?
Is Bugs Bunny gonna show up within doing like slanty eyes and a racist accent?
It's horrific.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
in this movie that is funny and silly, and that I think is safe to say we both enjoyed,
Yeah.
it's impossible not to acknowledge that it is also the most racist thing we've covered on the show.
It's pretty insane.
Yes. But anyway, so there's all these dudes getting ready for Kumite. We meet Frank Dukes. He's kicking a heavy bag repeatedly. And he's not kicking the heavy bag. Jackson's punching the heavy bag. He's kicking the little one. The little one that's, I don't know what those are called.
Yeah.
The speed bag.
Speed bag. He's in the military.
Yes.
And this military guy shows up who cannot act, which, let me say this, 95% of the people in this movie, including JCVD, cannot act.
Yes. JCVD is, this isn't only true of JCVD. A lot of the dudes who are the fighters in Kumite, JCVD very much included among them, are very, very good athletes.
I feel like JCVD is often put in the same category as Sylvester Stallone, as Arnold Schwarzenegger, as Chuck Norris. And he's like, he's a few rungs down on the ladder for me.
I think he's the missing link between those guys and Steven Seagal. I think Steven Seagal evolves into JCVD.
Yeah.
And then JCVD is the step between that Seagal and Schwarzenegger, right?
Well, he does strike me as like just trying to do the Schwarzenegger thing, where it's like, we
Yes.
found this guy
Right.
with a foreign accent and a great body who's an athlete.
Yeah.
Let's put him in movies.
And
the difference
include
between
one line of dialogue explaining his weird accent.
and the difference between him and Schwarzenegger is Schwarzenegger can actually act, but more importantly, even when Schwarzenegger's acting isn't the greatest, the dude just exudes charm and charisma.
And he has screen presence.
Yeah.
He is a compelling presence on screen. Whereas JCVD, unless he is making one of the weirdest faces anyone has ever made, and like he does
excel at that in this
multiple
film.
points in this movie. When he's not doing that, I'm like, this man has dead fish eyes. I have literally no idea what's going on in his head. Probably nothing.
Yeah, he has all the personality of a block of wood.
Yes. Or one of those bricks that he smashes.
I still kind of love him though.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I know he's like weird and conservative, and
Oh, is he?
But I don't know. He's kind of I kind of like the guy.
Yeah.
As an actor.
Yeah.
But he's not in my upper echelon of action stars, except for Expendables 2.
Yeah.
He rocks in the Expendables 2. He plays a nuke-crazy satanic
Oh,
terrorist.
that's right.
And he kicks ass.
I saw that one time in the theater, so I barely remember it. But I had forgotten about that performance. I sort of like him in Universal Soldier, although Lundgren is way better.
Oh yeah, Lundgren is stealing the show in that.
Yeah. But like I said, I think he is a phenomenal athlete. He is physically very impressive, and a lot of the stunts he does in this movie are really impressive.
Mhm.
Like I think that's his draw as a movie star for me. Is it's amazing just seeing this guy's body and what it can do.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, we'll probably say this multiple times, or at least I will. The best parts of this movie is when JCVD isn't talking. he's just punching people and he's shirtless and there's synth music playing
Yes.
in montage.
And he's screaming in a Belgian accent. I didn't even know it was possible to scream wordlessly in an accent, but Jean-Claude Van Damme demonstrated to me that it is possible. Because I was like, that's the most Belgian scream I've ever heard. Hello, Belgian listeners. I hope we are not offending you. Please continue listening to the show. We love you very much.
We love you very much. We're very surprised
Yes.
that you've joined us for so long.
Yes, we didn't expect to have Belgian listenership. If our stats are to be believed, you're about 5% of our audience, which is a sizable chunk, honestly. I've visited your country. It's very beautiful there. You have great French fries and great waffles, and Brussels is a beautiful city. And we hope you'll stay with us and not abandon us after we talk about this movie.
I hate the French language, but that's not your fault. That's the French's fault.
Yes, I'm fine with French when a Belgian is speaking it. It's when the French are speaking it that I take issue.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway.
So JCVD he's in the military and he gets called away by this guy and he's like, okay, I have to go take a shower first. I don't have a good JCVD accent.
I wasn't even attempting because I'm pretty sure I don't even know where to start with it.
Yeah.
He's kind of talking like I'm like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but French a little. It's like it's so hard to do. I can't fucking do it.
And every line reading is just the most insane take of that line that you've ever seen.
Yeah. I just like it's like I said, he is an inscrutable alien. But yeah, so he goes to take a shower, and then I love that before he goes to take a shower, just to show this military dude that nobody bosses Frank Dukes around, he kicks the speed bag one more time. Just to show him, like, I wasn't done with my workout yet. Well, bam! Now I am. And yeah, he goes to take a shower, and then the guy who is the military dude who was sent to fetch him is like, I'm coming in there if you're not out in 2 minutes or whatever. And I just expected him to walk in and for JCVD to be in there just plowing a lady or like beating off or something. And instead he's just gone.
He's gone. He's just snuck out.
I straight up thought, because this is a canon film, they're not above that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
straight up thought he was going to walk in and JCVD was going to be there in there with a woman and that he was just going to be like fucking the hell out of her in the shower. But no, he has just disappeared.
Surprising lack of boobs in this movie.
There's like no sex in this
for a canon film, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, canon is definitely not beneath showing some TNA.
Oh no, absolutely not, buddy. Ninja 3: The Domination, a movie that I have mentioned, has plenty of that.
Michael Winner, who directed I think Death Wish 2 and 3, just straight up a predator and was like treating the actresses in those movies terribly during the rape scenes. And some of Cannon's early stuff were like, softcore porn,
right.
like borderline pornography. So, but yeah, no titties in this movie, no sex of any kind.
Yes, hopefully that means that no one was being sexually abused during the making of the movie.
Yeah,
but I suppose the product doesn't need to contain that for that to be happening behind the scenes. Anyway, we're Frank Dukes like fucks off to Hong Kong to be part of the first he goes to his master's house.
Yeah, Justus, we have to have 10 minutes, 15 minutes or whatever of backstory.
It's so fucking funny that within literally the first so Jean-Claude Van Damme he shows up at this house. A woman opens the door and he's like, oh, so great to see you again. He walks in and looks at a katana. And like I said, he makes fuck eyes at this katana. Because Jean-Claude Van Damme's facial expressions are hard to read as acting, I was like, what is he thinking here? And I was like, he looks horny for this sword. And that might have just been down to the editing. They're sort of like transposing it like it's the sword and his face sort of transposed over each other. And I was just like, this just reads to me as he wants to fuck this sword. But it triggers a 10-minute flashback sequence, which is one of the longest flashback sequences I think I've ever seen. And it's the whole exposition for the movie.
Yeah.
Because then, as soon as this flashback ends, we're basically at Kumite.
Yeah. And then he's like, all right, I'm going to go to Hong Kong now.
It's so fucking funny. I was like losing it when I realized how long this flashback sequence was gonna go. Because basically he flashes back all the way to being a child, to being a young teen.
This kid sucks.
He's so
so bad at acting.
This is like literally the Room levels of acting.
Yeah.
Like literally like Birdemic levels of acting.
And the kid has an accent, so I don't know if he actually, English was a second language, or if he's trying to just
or if he's
do
doing
JCVD.
a JCVD impression, which if he is, honestly, he did a better job than I did.
But this kid sucks at acting. Also, holy ADR Batman. There's so much ADR in this film.
There is, I would say approximately 40% of the dialogue is ADR.
No, I would say more than that, for sure.
Do you think it's more than half?
Yeah, I think pretty much every Asian character in this film is ADR.
Yeah. And also, like, basically anything anyone says during any of the fights is ADR'd too, so I forgot to factor that in. So it's probably more like 80% of the movie is ADR.
Yeah. And tons of movies are ADR'd to shit, but, like,
You
it's
can't
so
always-
egregious here.
Yeah, you can't
It's
always
so
tell as much
obvious.
as you can in this movie. I feel like if you listen closely, you might be able to hear someone knocking over a water bottle in the recording studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The backstory is he broke into this guy's house when he was younger and got trained in the martial arts.
Yeah, they broke in to steal a sword, and this guy, his son comes in and beats up the kids who are there to steal the sword. And like other kids like fuck off and like run away. And young JCVD just stays. And then the guy is like, because you stayed and didn't flinch when I cut the brim off your San Francisco Giants hat.
When I almost killed you with a sword.
Yeah, then now you're my other son.
Yeah, now you're my student. Yeah. The only thing that has more padding than the mats that they're fighting on in this beginning of the movie is the pacing of the beginning of this movie. Did you notice who his sensei was?
No.
The poison you just drank, Dr. Jones.
I had no idea.
It's the Asian guy from the Chinese gangster from the beginning of Temple of Doom.
That's crazy because I feel like I have been saying the words Kalima Shakti Day
You
in
have.
several recent episodes. And also, our last episode, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, had a character named Hossein. And this movie has an actor from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and a character named Hossein. It just feels like we're hitting weird synchronicities on the movies that we cover. Yeah, I didn't notice that. That's insane.
I want to point it out because he's also one of the better actors in this movie, and he is in the movie for literally this opening, and that's it.
Yes, man, I know this is jumping ahead, but I just have to. It's so fucking funny that when JCVD shows up later after the flashback sequence is over to talk to his sensei as he's like dying or whatever, they haven't aged him up at all.
Yeah.
He looks exactly the same as when JCVD was like a young teen. So it's like this is at least a decade later, and it's like he is supposed to be like dying of old age, I think. Like he's like, I'm such an old man, and I'm like, motherfucker, you look like you are 39 years old.
Well, we do this whole 20-minute intro or whatever, 15-minute intro. I don't know how long it is, but it feels forever.
It does.
It puts
There's a whole training montage in this flashback. The flashback contains a training montage.
Yeah, he's setting the table blindfolded, and
he's
that's
getting
part of his
whacked with a stick
training.
so many times.
The son dies at some point, and they have a little funeral, and he's like, "You're my new son now, JCVD."
Yes. And JCVD's like, teach me the sacred art of Dimmak?
I don't know.
And he's like, you're not Japanese and you fucking can't learn it. And he's like, but I really want to. And he's like, okay.
Okay. I guess so. And then, yeah, he's the flashback ends and he's fucking dying. And JCVD basically shows up to say, so I'm going to go to the Kumite. See you later.
and the guy's like, okay.
Okay.
Right.
And all of that just so JCVD can go to the Kumite and like,
Yeah.
we're there.
So like the first like 16 minutes of this movie is all the setup the movie has, and then this is not a 3-act film, this is a 2-act film. The first 16 minutes is act 1, and then the rest of the movie is Kumite, and that is it. But yeah, he shows up at the Kumite. All of the Kumite fighters are staying in a hotel like it's a conference trip.
It's funny that this illegal fighting tournament, everyone in this movie is just like, oh, you must be here for the Kumite.
They show up at the hotel, and literally like the receptionist or whatever is like, oh, Kumite? Yeah, they're all up on floor 10 or whatever the fuck. It's like, yeah, you guys rented out the conference rooms? Gotcha. Yeah, Kumite? Uh-huh.
Can we talk about Ray for a second?
Hey, you here for the Kumite? That's actually the Marriott. So you want to go two hotels down the street though. Kumite's happening over there. Sorry, can we talk about what?
Can we talk about Ray?
Yeah.
Ray Jackson?
Yeah, we better. So his character introduction.
Yeah. Can I just say it?
Yeah.
Ray is the coolest man that has ever lived.
His character introduction is literally him walking onto a bus, opening a beer, and sexually harassing a woman. Like, and I thought, after seeing that character introduction, I was like, surely this is the villain of the film. This is the man who Frank Dukes will have to fight at the end of Kumite. Because he comes onto this bus and immediately starts harassing random women on the bus for no reason. Very aggressively.
Because in the next 2 minutes, he and JCVD play video games and become best friends.
Play video games homoerotically, which is another thing about this movie. This movie is very homoerotic.
Yeah.
It is Pride Month, so happy Pride, everybody. This is not a film with any canonically gay characters, but I think if you view this film, it's gay as hell. And
I also like, he cracks open his beer and leans over the bus seat to harass this woman, and he says,
Hey, babe, you want to go out with a real big man?
I can't picture a dimension of reality in which that line works in any situation.
No, like that. There are two ways that line goes. One, being ignored. Two, being shot by the police. Like I feel like being ignored is the best way that, hey babe, you want to go out with a real big man, can go. But yeah, they show up at the hotel and play video games, and now they're best friends.
And Ray's wardrobe consists, like, the only clothes that he's packed for this trip are
two Harley Davidson cutoffs,
a Harley Davidson bandana, a jean jacket, and jeans. And that's all he brought for the Kumite.
And I will say, so like, sexually harassing women is wrong, and I don't like that he did that. Everything else about Ray Jackson fucking wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is, like we said before, he is a master in biker foo, and he, like, his whole ring persona at the Kumite is basically a WWE wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
He's screaming at the crowd, like trying to get him amped. He's like, hey brother, I'm gonna kill you. Like, it's like the whole, yeah, it's very like Macho Man Randy Savage, the whole shit that he has going on. And I was like, yes, here for it, loving every second of it. More Jackson, please. This movie gives you plenty of Jackson.
There's plenty of Jackson here. I wish there was a little bit more, especially because he does go out like a punk. So we need to introduce some conflict for the third act.
Yeah, which, boy oh boy, I saw coming from a mile and a half away.
Yeah.
Basically, as soon as they sat down at the first Kumite, and they were like, hey, Chong Li's crazy, he killed a guy. I'm like, well, clearly he's going to almost ice Jackson, and then fucking Frank Dukes is going to fight him, and it's going to be revenge for mortally wounding his friend. I didn't know whether he was going to kill Jackson or only hurt Jackson. That was the only area where I was unsure, but I was like, yes, I have forecasted this movie's, last 10 minutes from minute 21.
Yeah. There's a scene where they show up to register for the Kumite, and JCVD's like, hey, I trained with Sensei so-and-so from the so-and-so clan, and they're like, hey, you're white. fucking prove it then.
Yeah, you have to prove that you're a master of dim mak by breaking the brick in this stack of bricks that we point out. And I like that at first the guy who's like the guy, I think he's like the he's the manager of Dukes and Jackson, because it seems like if they win he gets money.
Yeah, he's like he's kind of like their guide.
Yeah.
He's in charge of like the American competitors or something like
Would
that.
you believe, viewer, that this is ill-defined and it's not really clear
Yeah,
what his relationship is?
I took precisely 0 notes on this character.
Yeah.
Although I do enjoy him quite a bit.
I think he's
fun.
one of the best performances in the movie, honestly.
Yeah.
Although it did seem to me at points like he was doing a Dennis Dunn in Big Trouble in Little China impression.
That's fair.
I was like, I feel like you're just doing that other performance. But anyway, that might just be me projecting. Because I like that performance more, and that movie more. But yeah, so I like that he picks a top brick, and then the fight promoter guys, like the people who are in charge of the fight, are like, no, the bottom one, and he fucking does the thing where he like transfers the energy to the bottom brick and it explodes.
It literally explodes.
Yes. And they're like, okay, well, you're in.
Yeah.
And Jackson is like, they can tell I'm a master of biker foo. Hey, I'm here representing biker foo from Western Louisiana. My sensei is my sensei's Big Ron. I'm from the Big Ron clan.
I wrestled like alligator.
But yeah, so then it's like we were introduced to Kumite, like the first Kumite thing. Or do they go back to the bar and meet the reporter first?
Yeah, they go back to the bar and meet blonde lady.
Yeah, there's she's being sexually harassed by the Middle Eastern contestants in the Kumite because this movie is racist. So they're harassing her and like, oh, you're coming up to my room, and she's like, no. And Frank comes up and is like, hey, if I put this coin in your hand, and then I snatch it out of your hand before you can like close your palm, like then the lady gets to go with me instead of you. And they make a thing out of this where the reporter's like, that's so sexist. You're just like winning me in this contest. And then that's actually what happened. Like the movie goes out of its way to be like, what is being presented here is problematic and sexist. And then it's like, no, yeah, he literally wins the lady.
And she's just cool with it.
And she's just his girlfriend for the rest of the movie because he won her. And I'm like, so what exactly are we trying to say here? Was she wrong for questioning this behavior? Because I don't think she was.
And so her arc is she's trying to get into the Kumite.
Yeah, so that she can report on it because she's ostensibly a journalist.
Yeah.
And if she's reporting on a sporting event, one would assume she's a sports reporter. And my wife, who is a journalist, has known many sports reporters at the various journalism jobs that she has held. I do want to ask her, she didn't watch this film with me. I do want to ask her, do you know any sports reporters who have posed as escorts to sneak into a sporting event and then been so horrified by the sporting event, which they knew was a full contact martial arts contest, that they tried to get it shut down? It seems like lots of the things I just said are breaches of journalistic ethics. But those are things that she does in this film.
But she has a really, really hard time getting into the Kumite, and the whole movie is like, so you guys here for the Kumite?
It seems like if you ask...
You just go to the Kumite. It's not that hard.
It seems like if you asked any person on the streets of Hong Kong in this movie, hey, which way to the Kumite? They'd be like, oh yeah, it's over there. Hey, you know the one really cool looking alley in this city?
The dark and dingy alley that looks like it's from Blade Runner?
Go all the way down it.
All the way down that
All
thing.
the
It's gonna take you like 3 minutes of screen time to walk down this hall, this alleyway.
You think you're there, but actually there's just a bend in it, and then it keeps going. At the end of that, big red door, Kumite. Can't miss it.
And at the end of the movie, she literally just walks into the Kumite.
She walks into the Kumite, again, posing as an escort, it seems to be. And then again, she's like, she knows, she has said multiple times what the kumite is. We know she understands what the kumite is. And then as soon as she's in there and these guys are beating the hell out of each other, she's like, stop it! And I'm like, what did you think you were gonna see? You've been wanting to do a story on this for the whole movie. You didn't think guys were gonna be getting kicked in the fucking head? Like, anyway. So we meet her here. Jean-Claude Van Damme wins her in a game of skill. And then they go to the kumite for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the morning, Jackson walks in on JCVD doing the splits.
Oh, yes. Yes. JCVD does the splits, I think no fewer than 6 times in this movie.
I have an official count.
Okay. Oh, great. Great.
Would you like to guess?
My guess is 6.
It's 7.
Oh, I was so close. 7. Which is, you know what? The right amount of times. I think if it was fewer, I would have been like, could have had more splits. So yeah, I'm a big fan of seeing JCVD's legs going in opposite directions. It's amazing that he can do that.
I think he's a big fan of doing it.
Yeah, he seems to be.
It must
I think
be
he
in a
can still do it. Like if you go to his Instagram, I'm pretty sure he's still splitting.
Well, he did a commercial a little while ago where he was doing the splits between 2 trucks. That was like a stunt that they set up. Yeah, I think he's still coasting off. He's still coasting off the splits.
You know what? Good on him. That's very impressive. Like I said, amazing athlete. But yeah, so he's doing the splits and
meditating, which I found to be interesting.
There's a whole thing in his training montage about how he has to meditate. So that the only thing when he's fighting that he is seeing or feeling is his own energy, right? Which will come back, obviously. When he was being blindfolded in the training montage, I was like, they're clearly setting something up here. And lo and behold, I was correct. But yeah, he's meditating.
And I love Jackson just jumps up on the bed and starts yelling at him.
What are you doing?
We gotta go. Hey, brother. Don't you want to have kids someday? Why are you doing those splits?
As if doing the splits is going to tear his nutsack open, I guess, is Jackson's concern there. I mean, I feel like the splits really have less to do with the balls and more to do with like kind of the gooch, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm not an expert. I've never been able to do them, so.
Nor am I.
Anyway, yeah, he is doing the splits between 2 chairs, so he's doing the splits hovering off the ground. It's insane.
And not even probably the best shot of him doing the splits in this movie.
No, the best one is the aerial shot.
Yeah,
it's like over the city.
When he's out on the edge of that building.
That was the one shot in this movie where I was like, good shot. Pretty much the rest of this movie, I was like, any interior location, I'm like, this looks like a bad television show. And then a lot of the outdoor shots, I was like, that's fine or okay. But the one where he's meditating like on the balcony, I was like, really good shot.
I think the exterior shots are impressive to me just because it is just literally filmed on the streets of Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And Hong Kong, at least as depicted in this film, is visually very interesting and cool.
That's true. But it has less to do.
That's more a credit to Hong Kong than the filmmaking.
It has less to do with how the shots are framed and composed, and more just Hong Kong is an interesting city to look at. And at least the one where he's doing the splits on the balcony, I was like, okay, some thought went into how this was composed. But anyway, so then they're at the kumite. Yeah,
this is the first of many montages of this movie that are just fighting and synth music.
Yes.
And you know what? It rules.
This easily the best parts of this movie are just when 2 dudes are fighting in the kumite. By the way, if it sounds like we're saying kumite a lot on this episode, don't worry. They say it as much or more in this film. So many motherfuckers are saying kumite. There's I don't even remember what order the fights happened, to be honest, and I didn't really take notes on like the order of the fights, but we see some of the guys fighting on this first day.
Yeah.
We get introduced to like some guys who will come back. Like there's the guy who's like, I think he's like doing like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, or he's kind of like an MMA fighter sort of. His name's Paco.
Yeah, Paco.
Which I think is really funny because all the other guys have a first name and a last name, and this guy is just Paco. When his name pops up on the little like fighter versus fighter, and it shows their names. Everybody else, it's like you see their full legal name. His 4 letters, PACO. And I'm like, bold choice, Paco. to be credited only as Paco.
Yeah, and everyone kind of has a thing. the movie doesn't really draw a ton of attention to what their thing is, so a lot
Yeah.
of these guys are kind of indistinguishable,
Right.
unless you're an African gentleman and your method of fighting happens to be crawling around on the floor like a monkey.
Yes. Thankfully, there is one other black guy in the Kumite who does not fight like a monkey. So that's nice. I guess credit where credit is due. But that one does stick out like a sore thumb with a Confederate flag painted on it.
Yeah.
But there's also like a sumo wrestler guy, like
Mhm.
just a really big dude who JCVD will fight later. And of course we meet Chong Li,
Yeah.
who like the entire crowd 15 times in this movie chants Chong Li, Chong Li, Chong Li, and by the end I was doing it too. I was doing it right along with him. I was like, yeah, kill Frank Dukes.
Well, I like so we're introduced to Chong Li during a fight.
Yeah.
And Ray leans over to JCVD and he's like,
That's Chong Li, brother. He killed someone last year, and everyone loves him.
and then Ray gets up for his fight, and we're introduced to Biker Fu, and he grabs a guy by the head and punches him in the face and knocks him out clean with one punch.
Yep.
And then he's got blood dripping down from his face and all over his bare chest, and he points out to Chong Li and he goes,
I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you, brother.
Yeah,
I'm coming for you, man.
and then Chong Li comes out and does a fight. So Chong Li rocks.
yes.
Chong Li loves bouncing his titties around. He loves flexing those pecs.
So this actor, whose name I didn't take down, but this actor was a professional bodybuilder,
Mhm.
and boy, oh boy, can
yeah,
you tell.
he's bigger than Van Damme.
He is colossal. He is so wide. And in this first fight, yeah, when he's just like doing the like pec flex at this other guy, I was like, holy shit, what a fucking physique this dude has. His arms are fucking gargantuan. It's crazy.
Yeah, he has a couple of lines. To me, they didn't read as particularly memorable.
Yeah.
Because when I think back on this movie, Chong Li functions best as a silent villain
Yeah.
that just kills people by punching them
Yeah.
and flexing his pecs.
The one I remember is like towards the end, after he's wounded Jackson and he goes to fight Van Damme, he does say to Van Damme, like, I will break you like I broke your friend, or
Mhm.
something like that. So yeah, he basically opens his mouth twice.
Yeah.
Actually, he opens his mouth a lot
Yeah.
to make crazy faces
He
like Van Damme
does.
does, but he only speaks twice.
I also love every time that he beats a guy
Yeah.
and he's showboating or whatever, trying to bask in the adoration of the crowd. He does like a little kid dance.
Yes.
He like bounces up and down and throws his arms up and down like a little kid.
He's having a fucking great time at the Kumite.
He is.
Chong Li just loves doing the Kumite. It's his favorite thing. Yes, and his excitement was infectious because I was like, I love this for you. Yes, I would like for you to win. You clearly want it the most.
JCVD has a fight with Hossein
Yes.
and beats Chong Li's record and knocks Hossein out in like 12 seconds.
Yes, knocks the gold tooth out of his mouth.
Yeah,
There's
there's
a
a
sort of
gag
funny
where they-
moment where the
yeah.
ring attendant like picks up the gold tooth and bites on it to see if it's real gold and is like, I'm pocketing this.
Yeah.
Kind of funny. But yeah. Also, so like that first day of Kumite is pretty much done with that, right? We've
Mhm.
sort of covered it.
Mhm.
It's probably time to get to the B plot of this movie, which we have not mentioned yet. But that is like after he ran out after showering at the beginning of the movie, the government has sent 2 spooks after him. One of whom is Oscar winner Forrest Whitaker.
Yep.
I saw his name pop up in the opening titles. I didn't know he was in this movie, and I was like, what?
I've seen this movie once, and I completely forgot Forrest Whitaker was here.
It's little baby Forrest Whitaker. He's very young in this movie.
Yes.
Um,
this is like his 5th or 6th film, I think.
Yeah, it's so crazy that he is in this movie. And also, it's the same thing as like the I'm gonna win a woman with a coin trick thing in this movie, where like the movie acknowledges that it's problematic and then does nothing to rectify it. with Forrest Whitaker's character, which is like he has like an older white spook that he is like paired with, and the white guy never lets him fucking talk. And you see the camera will do a close up on Forrest Whitaker after he gets cut off by this dude, and he kind of looks annoyed and is like, "Oh, hey, this guy's always talking over me." And I was like, this feels like the movie is acknowledging that this behavior by this other guy is racist, and then they never do anything about it. And I was like, what are you telling me?
Because this plot doesn't matter.
Right. It shouldn't be in the movie.
No.
Really.
This whole time they're trying to get JCVD, and every time they run into him, he's like, I'm going to fight in the Kumite. I'll see you at the airport. And then this scene is like, they show up to this hotel, and I guess, it's the downtime in between fighting montages, and the audience is starting to fall asleep. So let's just have him run away from them across Hong Kong.
Yes, yeah. They confront him in the hotel. They have these weird looking tasers. I don't know if these were real 1980s tasers.
They look like old tasers.
Yeah, they looked nuts to me, but they pull tasers on him. They're like, don't make us give you 50,000 volts. And Jackson fucking tackles these guys because Jackson is hanging with Van Damme in the hotel, which gives Van Damme enough time to run away. And then we have maybe the silliest foot chase I've ever seen.
It is rather silly.
It's quite goofy because it's just like, it's set to this the music in this movie is nuts. We already had one original song at the end of the first day of Kumite that's like, Kumite, Kumite. It's just this 80s power synth shit. And then in this chase sequence, it's like, I didn't note down any of the lyrics or anything, but it's literally like, I have a beautiful dream in my heart. Like, it's shit like that. I want to fly so high. And it's that sort of like inspirational 80s power synth as Jean-Claude Van Damme is running away from these two CIA spooks, and he keeps like hopping on top of a car and turning back around at them and being like, hey, I'm over here, come get me. And then running off. And I'm like, what the fuck why are we just now? We were doing cool Kumite shit, and now it feels like I am sitting here with my dick in my hand while you fucking do a chase from like a fucking Saturday morning cartoon. Like, what is going on? He eventually chases these CIA spooks, chase him down to the docks, and they fall in the water and get all wet.
And he's like hopping across boats, and there's civilians sitting on the boats, and he has to go like, sorry,
Sorry.
Yeah, it's very silly, and very stupid.
Yeah, and like the guys fall in the water, they come out, one of them like spits some water out, and they look up, and he's just like on the pier, and he's just like, bye, see you later. And I'm like, for what? Why was this sequence in the film?
Because we have to get this thing up to 90 minutes.
I guess so.
And then he has a date with blonde lady.
Yes.
She's like, if you get me into the Kumite, I'll bang you.
Yeah. Do we ever actually learn this woman's name?
I'm sure we do.
I feel like she says it maybe when she introduces herself to him, and then literally never again, because I started listening for it being like, I don't know this character's name. I'm going to pay close attention and see if I can pick it up. And then they never fucking say it. But yeah, she wants to get into the Kumite. She's like, hey, maybe I can fuck my way into the Kumite. This is clearly a thing that a professional journalist would be open to doing.
we cut to the next morning, and she wakes up in bed. After being dicked down by the muscles from Brussels. We get a great shot of that juicy prime Belgian beef.
The ass on this man is fucking insane. I have rarely in my life seen an ass like this.
Yeah.
It's like a once in a generation ass. I was like, damn. Yeah, it's wild. It's crazy too because you only see his ass in this movie.
Yeah.
There's no other ass in this movie. He's like, if we're going to put an ass in the movie, it has to be mine.
He's putting on a Speedo.
Yeah.
And she's like, so you gonna get me into that Kumite? And he's like, no, see you later.
she's like, oh fuck, I slept with 1988 Jean-Claude Van Damme, who looks like a beautiful little baby Boy Scout with a fucking shredded physique for no reason. Although she is apparently just in love with him from that point on in the movie.
Yeah. That's their relationship.
Yeah, she's like, you won me in a coin toss. I fucked you to try and get into a sporting event, and now you're the love of my life. Anyway, so then it's Kumite Day 2, I guess.
Kumite Day 2, Ray smashes his head with a brick.
yes.
As like a warm-up.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
He goes up to the dim Mac bricks and he's like, bottom one, right? And then he punches the top one in half. And then one of the fight promoter guys is like, that's not dim Mac. And he's like, neither is this. Fucking just cracks his brick on his
want
head.
to party with him so bad.
Me too, except I feel like if he got too much alcohol in him, he'd be dangerous. Like, you say the wrong thing around him, and suddenly you're getting thrown out a window. But he does seem like he'd be a good hang. Yeah. And so then we're back in the fight. More fights are happening. Paco is fighting some guy who's doing kung fu. We have, of course, the very visually comedic fight of the giant sumo wrestler guy versus the guy who fights like a monkey. So it's like the guy who is the biggest and the guy who is the smallest. Because the guy who fights like a monkey is also just physically very small.
Yeah.
He's probably like the lightest fighter in the whole movie. And of course the sumo wrestler wins that one because as this guy's jumping around and like kicking him in the head, he's just like, huh. doing some classic grade A, like, I'm a giant oaf laughing. Yeah.
There's a part where JCVD and this other guy spin kick each other at the same time, and then they both do a jump kick at each other at the same time, and JCVD wins, and it's all in slow motion.
Yes.
And it's just very funny seeing these two guys doing the same exact moves back to back against each other.
Yeah. There's also in this montage a couple Chong Li fights. And in one of them, he breaks a dude's shin, and the bone goes through the skin on the front of his leg. And I was like, love to see that. Thank you, Canon Films. The effect isn't great. Like, you can clearly tell it's makeup, but I was still like, I still appreciate it. Thank you for giving me that.
Yeah.
The fighting in this movie, like, that's the most, like, overtly violent moment. But pretty much every time someone's getting punched or kicked in the face, tons of blood is flying out of their mouth and nose in this movie. It's like, it is not, by any stretch of the imagination, bloodless violence. Even though there's not, like, gore, there's a ton of blood. It does live up to the name.
Yeah, I agree. And it's all fun and entertaining. So some of the fighting in this movie is less expertly choreographed than others.
Yes.
So some of these hits are very clearly, like, you know, those, like, near misses for the camera, or you're not punching someone really hard. And sometimes the movie tries to make it really dramatic and make it seem like it's a big hit.
Yeah. There's one kick that I think is in slow motion where I could just straight up see the guy's foot going past the other guy's head, and then the guy's head, like, whipping back and a ton of blood coming out of his mouth. And I was like, you didn't fucking get me with that one. I saw what you did, movie. Yeah.
I like there's the other black guy in this movie.
Yeah.
Other
than Forrest Whitaker.
Other than Forrest Whitaker, and other than the monkey guy.
Yes, and the guy who fights like a monkey. Yes.
Yeah. He fights JCVD, and there's this big build-up before they fight where he does this, like, he has huge, intense eyes.
Yes.
And he aggressively points at JCVD, does the throat-cutting gesture.
Yes.
And then JCVD kicks him in the face, and he falls to the ground immediately.
Yes.
And then he gets back up, and JCVD kicks him in the face again, and he just flies out of the ring.
Yeah. It's so much setup for, like, nothing. It's insane.
It's pretty great.
Yeah. And so
JCVD also does the splits to the balls punch, which rocks.
One of maybe my favorite moment in this movie is Jean-Claude Van Damme doing the splits, punching a guy in the dick, and then screaming at his own fist. Literally, he just holds his fist in front of his face after punching this dude in the dick, and he's like, ah! It's so good. And then it's Chong Li v. Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ray really just fucks this thing up.
He could have won.
He easily could have.
He like lays Chong Li out in, like, the first couple seconds of this fight. Like, Chong Li's down, And even Jean-Claude Van Damme is like, don't stop it, hit him again. And my Jean-Claude Van Damme impression is going to be different every time I do
I've
it.
noticed.
Because that's also how he sounds to me when he acts. I'm like, I'm not sure that was the same accent that came out of him 2 scenes ago. But yes. So he just starts playing the crowd instead of finishing this fucking fight. Ray's just like, yeah, Jackson, which trying to get a crowd to chant your name by like trying to initiate the chant of your own name like that has big Jeb Bush please clap energy. It's just like, no, man, like if they want to do it, they'll do it. You know, you can't start the chant of your own name.
Yeah, I think the way to win this crowd over is you have to kill a guy.
Yeah, I think
because
so.
everyone loves Chong Li.
Yeah.
Even though it's like this legend around him, and it casts this shadow over his character that he killed the guy last time around. Apparently, everyone was cool with that.
Yeah,
and also like,
I mean, of course, what else am I going to the Kumite for? This is where I can see a guy kill a guy. If I want to just see people fight in mixed martial arts styles, I could fucking go to the Octagon. I could go to UFC. You know,
you could go to the illegal fighting tournament in Hong Kong that doesn't exist, and also everyone there knows about and is cool with.
Yeah. But like if I'm going to the Kumite, I'm going because a guy might die. That's the thing that's not going to happen at most legal fighting tournaments, right? It's like, like, of course I'm going to be chanting for the guy who killed a guy. That's why I'm here. Yeah. And so Jackson makes the crowd give it up for him for too long, and Chong Li gets back up and just fucking
kicks him in the head a bunch.
Yeah, kicks him in the head a shit ton of times.
Yeah.
The way that he lays Chong Li out, I like, is he does headbutt him, which is like the Jackson move, sort of.
Yeah.
So that's fun. But yeah, Jackson gets kicked in the head a bunch and gets knocked unconscious. And it's like, oh, is he dead? But he's not. He's just in like a coma or just unconscious or something.
He goes to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the next scene here is JCVD on the bus, and he's sad, and there's sad music playing.
Yeah.
And then he thinks that he's like flashing back to like,
when David says there's sad music, by the way, it is more 80s power synth with more original lyrics for the movie.
Yeah.
That are like, why did I think I could do this? Now everything is going wrong. Like, it's all shit like that.
I went to the Kumite and my best friend almost died, and my girlfriend is mad at me.
Gotta get his Harley Davidson headband back.
Oh, that's the other thing. Chong Li steals his headband.
Yes, and that becomes a big thing.
Yeah. And then Frank Dukes thinks that he sees Chong Li on the bus.
Yes.
And it's like a horror movie jump scare. I laughed my ass off.
Yeah.
Then he's fighting with blonde lady, so he does this sad bus ride. And then there's that epic shot of him doing the splits on that building.
Yeah, sorry, we do also, before where we're at now, go to the hospital, and there is one thing I must call out in this hospital scene. So in this first hospital scene when Jackson is hospitalized, and like it's when the thing that you just mentioned, when Jean-Claude Van Damme fights with his reporter girlfriend, they're in Jackson's room, and the doctor is using a stethoscope to listen to Jackson's like heart and lungs, but he's moving it every like second and a half. And I'm like, I'm not a medical professional. I am not a doctor. I'm pretty sure that's not how you use a stethoscope. Literally, he's like putting it in a spot on this dude's chest and leaving it there for like 1 second and then moving it. And just doing that over and over and over in the background of the scene. He moves it like 30 times. And I'm like, motherfucker, what do you think you are going to hear in that spot that you didn't just hear in that spot? It's bananas. I was like, and you know, if anyone listening to the show is a medical professional and I'm wrong about that being insane, write in and let us know. thegreatestmoviepodcast@gmail.com. But I'm pretty sure I'm right, and that is not how that works. Wanted to call that out. And then they start fighting in Jackson's room, and the doctor's like, can you get out of here, please? I'm trying to save this man's life. And I'm like, what? By fucking placing a stethoscope in 15 different spots on his chest? Anyway, but then yes, he's doing the splits on the roof, and it's the good shot that we talked about.
Yeah, that's a good shot.
Yeah, and he's doing his meditation poses, and all the muscles in his back are just like rippling, and I'm like, man, phenomenal shape this man is in. Just insane physique on this dude. Anyway.
Yeah, it rocks. And then we close off our plot with the the government agents because they try to stop him from going to the Kumite, and he's like, "Look, I'm just gonna go to the Kumite.
Yeah.
You can't stop me." And then they just decide to follow him in and sit and watch the Kumite.
Well, first, there's the lamest thing in this movie is this fight sequence in this hallway that he has with the guys who came to fetch him to bring him back to America. Because like it's Forrest Whitaker and the other guy and the inspector, the Hong Kong inspector, are all cooperating. So the Hong Kong inspector has brought Hong Kong police, and it's like this big moment where it's like, if you won't come willingly, then we're gonna have to force you. And he's like, okay, you can try. And he starts walking down this hallway, and two guys jump out at him, and he hits them both once, and then they're like, okay. And then the two spooks pull out their tasers.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember how he does it.
Oh, he deflects him with like a trash can.
Oh,
lid.
yeah.
Oh, he deflects it into a couple guys that are standing next to him.
Right. And just electrocutes them. And then like, while they're distracted by the fact that they just tased somebody else, he just grabs their tasers out of their hands and is like, I'm going to go to the Kumite. Goodbye. And that's it. And I'm like, it seemed like we were really building up to something here, and then it's like 2 seconds, donezo. Now we're all just going to the Kumite.
Yeah, and then the girlfriend's there at the Kumite.
Yes. I think she's posing as an escort. I've said that a couple times. I'm pretty sure that's what she's doing.
She's
like on the arm of this like rich businessman guy.
Yeah, she's in a dress, and her hair's a little bit different than it was. She doesn't look like her normal like journalist outfit is on.
Yeah, and when she interacts with JCVD, she's very much like, shh, don't let anyone know who I am. So it's like she's clearly like undercover reporting the Kumite, which she does a very bad job at, because at one point she just pulls a tape recorder out of her purse and starts talking into it. And I'm like, if you're trying to be subtle and lay low here, maybe don't just in full view of the entire crowd yoink that thing out of your purse and be like, so I'm reporting here live from the Kumite. for the San Francisco Chronicle. Like, yeah, so everyone's there. We're at the finals of the Kumite.
Yeah, and these last three fights aren't really done in montage. You kind of see them all.
Yeah, you mostly see the whole thing.
Thing. The first one is JCVD versus Paco.
Yes.
And the notable moment from this fight that I enjoyed is when they start just kicking each other in the side one after another.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now you kick me, I kick you, you kick me.
They're just taking turns being each other's heavy bags.
Yeah.
It's fun. And of course, eventually he does best Paco.
Yeah.
Does he knock Paco out?
I don't remember.
But then it's him versus it's Frank Dukes versus the sumo wrestler dude. Or did that already? Yeah.
That might have already happened.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
The next note I had is Chong Li, because I think Paco was JCVD's qualifying match, and then Chong Li fights his qualifying match where he kills a guy by punching him in the head.
Right, that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's
it's
JCVD versus Chong Li.
Okay, yeah. So the sumo fight must have happened earlier. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And then it's Chong Li versus JCVD.
Yeah.
Tons more pec flexing. We see that Chong Li has wrapped Ray's Harley Davidson bandana around his leg.
Yes.
To taunt him.
Yes. Oh, also, so before the fight starts, there's two things.
Mm-hmm.
So Chong Li has, like you said, killed a dude in the last fight by punching him in the head one too many times. So this guy's dead. I like that the crowd loves it, gives it up for Chong Li, and then the judges all turn their backs on him in disapproval. Because it's like, what do you think the Kumite is about? Killing people? No. We have morals here at the Kumite. And I'm like, this is the first I'm hearing of this being a problem.
Yeah, this was my first one in my first letterbox review of this movie. Which is welcome to the Kumite, where everything's made up and the points don't matter. Because Nothing about this makes any sense at all.
No, there's no weight classes. We do learn that there are 3 rules of Kumite, which is the ways you win is knock the other guy out of the ring, knock the other guy unconscious, or make him say mate. Right?
Yeah,
which is basically like
make him yield.
Crying uncle, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's the one thing is them the judges turning their backs on Chong-Li, because it does sort of get some of the crowd on Frank Dukes' side in the last fight. So it's like, it's not important, but like it's a thing that happens. But the other thing that's actually important is we see Chong-Li before this last fight with Frank Dukes, he stuffs a little capsule in his belt. There's there's like a little white tablet that he like puts in his
It's his pocket sand.
Yes, yeah. It's true. But yeah, so then they are fighting. There's pec flexing, and then there is punching and kicking. And I mean, there's a lot of like, this is probably the best fight in the movie, which makes sense because it's the last one.
Yeah, there's more slow-mo here in this scene alone than in an entire Zack Snyder film, it seems like.
Yeah. It's a lot of slow-mo.
There's a cool part where JCVD is a front flip and then kicks Chong in the face over his shoulder. Like his leg goes straight in the air to kick Chong in the face.
That was bananas. And he's shot from the waist up there, so I'm like, they technically could have faked that, but I bet they didn't. I bet JCVD can just do that. But who knows?
Yeah, it does rock.
It's very cool either way, whether they faked it or whether it was real.
And then Chong-Li throws his pocket sand.
Yep.
And JCVD does the rest of this fight blind.
But it's fine because he remembers the time that he served tea blindfolded and blocked one punch. It's the same thing.
I think he also did do some actual fighting training blindfolded.
We see him fight with his master. His master, who, by the way, I forgot to mention this, and it's really important that we touch on it, even though it happened an hour 20 earlier into the movie at this point. His master, who lost his first family in the Hiroshima atomic bombing.
Right, that is part of the funeral scene after his son dies, where he's
first 8 minutes of this movie contain a reference to the bombing of Hiroshima. I was like, pardon me, Bloodsport? Pardon me, Newt Arnold's Bloodsport from 1988? What did you just say?
Are we gonna discuss the horrors of war?
I was like, not like the racism in this movie. That moment made my jaw drop to the floor. I was like, I cannot fucking believe that we are shoehorning Hiroshima into this movie. It feels like a movie now referencing 9/11 just like really casually, just being like, oh yeah, his whole family died in 9/11. It's like when that happens in a movie, you're like, huh. Not sure about that one. Maybe we should have taken a pass or two at his backstory and made it something less traumatic. But anyway, so yes, he's flashing back to fighting his master who lost his whole family in the bombing of Hiroshima.
It's very important that you know that, apparently.
Yes, I felt like I had to mention it because it was so insane.
Yeah.
But anyway, so now he's able to fight even though he can't see because he's remembered his training. Luke, remember your training.
Yeah, he does just straight up punch the air at one point. And I know we get POV shots of his blurry vision.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, dude, you can sort of see.
Yes. Yeah.
You should be able to see what's in front of you.
Yeah. Also before he pulls himself together and like meditates and remembers his training and sees and feels his own energy, he is just kneeling in the middle of the mat, screaming his fucking head off.
Yeah, this is the gif that you have seen from this movie.
Yes.
Which is JCVD screaming his head off. Every vein in his neck is bursting. His traps are insane.
It's crazy. And it goes on for so long. Like he's just screaming for so long. It reminded me a little bit of the end of I Saw the TV Glow, another a scene in a movie where a person is screaming for an uncomfortably long amount of time. Different vibes though.
I feel like that is the only time that anyone on Earth has ever or will ever bring up Bloodsport. And I Saw the TV Glow in the same breath.
Hey, that's why our listeners come to this show.
That's for what you come for.
Original takes like that. 2 movies that contain long screams. Anyway, But yeah, then he remembers how to fight without being able to see, and he fights good. And the tide of the fight turns here, and he starts sort of beating the shit out of Chong Li.
Yeah, he spin kicks Chong Li in the face like 6 times in a row, and it's rad as hell.
Yep.
And Chong Li yields.
Say Matei.
Yeah, and JCVD takes the bandana back. He and Ray meet up again in the hospital, and they're
I love you, brother.
Ray is drinking a beer in his hospital bed, which I was like, cool move. Don't know if they'd let you do that, but also don't know if anybody's going to be able to stop this guy, because they'll probably just throw him out a window if they tell him he can't have the beer in the hospital bed.
No,
It's my right as an American.
Actually, in the sacred martial science of biker foo, it is tradition for us to imbibe in malted hops and barley while we're recovering from injury. So if you take this away from me, you are stifling my performance as a martial scientist.
Martial science is a thing that they say in this movie. Don't know if I've ever heard that before.
I don't know either.
I bet that's from the mind of Frank Dukes. I bet he was like, no, not martial art. It's better. I have one. I can plus up martial art. Anyway,
every movie should have Ray Jackson in it, I think.
yes.
I haven't. We haven't really said it, but the guy who plays him, Donald Gibb, one of the better actors in this film.
Yeah.
And does a great job with his
totally.
performance, and we love Ray.
Yes. Yeah, he's good. And then because Frank Dukes won the Kumite, everybody's cool with him again. Ray Jackson's gonna live and be fine. He's got his headband back.
Yeah.
The girl and Frank are like, hey, see you later. And I'm fucking off back to San Francisco with my 2 government spooks. And the government spooks are like, oh, Frank Dukes, you're so crazy. We had to come to Hong Kong to try and stop you from doing Kumite because you're an asset. And if you died, we would be out a substantial investment, I guess. But you won, so it's all good, buddy.
We're all friends now.
Let's get on the plane and get out of here.
And we freeze frame, and then there's text at the end that's like, everything that happened in this movie totally happened.
Totally happened.
Here's all of Frank Dukes' very real and not at all fake statistics.
See, there's numbers. That means it's real. Nobody could make up numbers. And then there's the end song and Kumite, and we're out. And it's 93 minutes long, and God bless it, it shouldn't be a second longer.
Justus!
Yeah.
Is Bloodsport the greatest movie ever made?
David, I'm struggling with this one a little bit. I was struggling with this one last night too, because I'm like, kinda, sort of, because there's a lot in this movie that is typical greatest movie ever made material for me, such as it being dumb as shit, such as there being a lot of really cool fight choreo, and it being violent as hell. All of that stuff I love. However, I am going to give Bloodsport a no. Not so much because of the racism and sexism, because even though those things are bad, this movie is also a dumb as shit action movie from 1988. And I feel like in a dumb as shit action movie from 1988, it having racism in it is sort of unfortunately par for the course.
Yeah.
And therefore doesn't necessarily count against my enjoyment of the film. It's just a thing that I have to like intellectualize and be like, that's bad, right? So like not so much because of that. I think the bigger reason that I'm saying no about this movie is that B-plot we really should have lost. The love interest thing is like so half-baked and so ill-defined. And so many of the performances in this movie, like you said, suck shit. Like so many of the actors in this movie are incapable of acting. JCVD is very fun to watch when he's doing his amazing athletic stuff. When he's delivering dialogue, not so much. Chong Li's my boy. Team Chong Li for life. If Chong Li had won, this would be the greatest movie ever made, but Frank Dukes wins, so I'm gonna give it a no, with the caveat of I still had a fucking great time with this. It's very stupid and very silly, and if people like campy, dumb action movies like this and haven't seen this, like I hadn't, they should check it out. David, is Bloodsport the greatest movie ever made?
Justice, the 45 minutes of this movie when there is synth music playing, people are fighting, JCVD is screaming, and slow-mo is happening, this shit's better than The Godfather. Everything else kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It's charming. A lot of the extra extraneous stuff in this movie is charming, partially because it's really bad.
Right.
Even the racism to me, I'm like, that's really problematic and cringy. Also, kind of funny that this movie is trying this hard to be racist.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yes, I hope people listening to this don't take to this wrong way.
You just kind of have to. You kind of have to take it in stride with some of these '80s action movies.
Yeah,
I'm not saying racism is funny. I'm saying the racism of an '80s action movie is funny.
It's funny the way the movie decides to be racist.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. I think that makes sense. And it's like, it doesn't make it not problematic or harmful, but you do sort of just have to look at it and be like, these fucking idiots.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fun as hell. It's charming and stupid and dumb as shit and violent and fueled with testosterone and homoeroticism and just moments that make you go, hell yeah. But no, I mean, like, I don't think there's in any way this movie's the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah.
If it was 45 minutes and just people fighting, sure, AFI top 100. But no.
Yeah. Well,
sorry, Jean-Claude.
Sorry, Frank Dukes. But it's okay. I'm sure that the real events that you actually experienced were much cooler than the movie. Yeah, that's Bloodsport.
That's Bloodsport. I'm glad we talked about it.
Me too.
I had fun.
I had a fun time. I had a fun time watching it. Maybe had more fun talking about it. This was a fun one. Anyway.
Talk about the show, tweet about the show, tell your friends about the show.
Yeah.
Support us, give us a review. Someone please leave us a review.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like begging on my hands and knees here.
I'll beg on my hands and knees.
Or be an asshole. I had my asshole my little arc where I was an asshole to everyone a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
But leave us a review. That would be just the tits.
It would.
Next week, Justus, are we doing a guest episode?
Yes. Next week, we will be joined by the incomparable, the delightful, the magnificent Kelsey Hantz, and we will be talking about Little Shop of Horrors. And she has promised that she will be singing a bunch. So tune in for that.
I'm looking forward to that. I've never seen the film, so I'm excited to check it out and excited to join you and Kelsey back here in the podcast dojo martial arts ring for another kumite of movie criticism. In the meantime, we love you all so much. Thank you all for tuning in, and as always,
later, dipshits!
We hope you enjoyed this episode of The Greatest Movie Ever Made. Please remember to leave us a rating and a review, and to subscribe to the show wherever you listen. We appreciate you supporting the show and spreading the word. Tell your friends to listen, tell your enemies to listen, tell your mom to listen. If your neighbor has an unsecured Bluetooth speaker, connect to it and play an episode. You can follow us on social media at TGMEM_podcast, and if you've got a movie that you want us to talk about, send us an email at thegreatestmoviepodcast@gmail.com.